Growing up, one of my favorite games to play was Battleship. I'm weird. But as a girl who is terrified of the ocean, and battles, and ships, the game was sort of an escape for me. I felt like I could confront my fears without actually confronting them. And so every Friday night, I would pitch camp in the middle of my living room and play with my dad for hours. He never let me win. But to his credit, he was probably pretty frustrated with the way I played. Even if I said a space like B1 and he said, "Miss," I wouldn't believe him. So I'd keep saying B1 until he eventually relented and said, "Hit." I'm really bad at board games. And according to the New York Times on January 20th, 2020, this attribute isn't necessarily uncommon, because when it comes to our ability to pick our battles, we're not very good, often diving into issues that aren't worth our time or effort, or engaging in ways we shouldn't, leaving us feeling disinterested, disheartened, and most often, disengaged. Simply put, we don't know how to pick and choose our battles. And that's a problem, because at a time when we struggle to engage in civil discourse about pretty much everything, learning to separate the small stuff from the big stuff may be the only way forward. So today, let's first take a look at how we pick battles that we should just ignore. Second, how when we do pick battles, we never go about it in a productive way. Next, look at some implications before finally re-evaluating the lens through which we examine these exchanges. Because as Dr. Raghu Padiyath once said, Battleship isn't just a game. It's an analogy for life. And if we don't learn how to pick and choose our battles, sooner or later, we will sink. Dr. Raghu Padiyath is my dad, so human beings inherently love to feel important, especially me. I just cited my dad, and when we don't feel like the world around us acknowledges our needs, or even our existence, we fight back. According to Dr. Richard Carlson in his best-selling book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, It's All Small Stuff, he explains that, well, I guess the title kind of gives it away. But so often we take things that should have no importance to us and make it the most important thing in the world. I mean, when was the last time you hopped on social media and saw something that just got under your skin and you spent 2 hours crafting the perfect, well, actually, response when you could have spent that time doing something productive? And these decisions have even deeper consequences. According to a large-scale study published on January 27, 2013, in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships, researchers investigated the effect that ignoring ignorance has on productivity. 120 participants were asked to either engage with or ignore people they found offensive. After just 4 minutes of interaction, they were given a brain exercise that required a high level of concentration. The group that ignored performed much better than the group that engaged. Imagine what that same improvement in problem solving can have on your career, relationships, and even mental health, if only we learn which battles are worth picking. But I know, Manashree, how do I not respond to Karen the anti-vaxxer? And trust me, I get it. But it's not so much the need to respond that's flawed, but rather the way we go about it. Because when we engage, it's never to learn. It's to win. In his 2013 TED Talk, for argument's sake, philosophy professor Daniel Cohen argues that the 21st century version of an argument completely misses out on the whole point of a debate. We talk at each other instead of talking with each other, leaving both parties feeling frustrated and annoyed. we see ourselves in the most self-preserving light, and our opponents in the worst. But a heroic self-image can lead to hostile behavior, the effects of which go far beyond the argument itself. When we see these exchanges as battles to be won, or people we disagree with as opponents to be defeated, we lose sight of what's truly important. But sometimes you have to engage the wrong way to learn when to engage. Last year, inspired by the hashtag #MeToo movement and personal experiences, I decided to lead a sexual assault awareness campaign at school in hopes of erasing the taboo surrounding the topic. I spent hours creating and hanging up posters only to find them in trash cans, urinals, and toilets just a day later. And although I received some messages of support, I still felt like my message wasn't being heard by the people who needed to hear it. And so one day, when hanging up more posters, because I don't give up easy, a guy that assaulted my friend the previous semester walked past me. And in that moment, I decided to hang up one of my posters on his locker. Not soon after, someone took a picture of it, posted it on social media, it went viral, and I was being called the harasser. I got called into my principal's office where I was given detention, and the entire campaign was shut down. All the good I achieved was overlooked simply because I picked the wrong battle and went about it in a completely selfish way. Only then did I realize the importance of knowing how and when to pick my battles. But unfortunately, we don't have a crystal ball that shows us the results of our actions. Shifting the intention of a discussion from winning to creating a mutually satisfying outcome can be really tough, especially when we have such strong opinions. So, how do we go about making these nuanced decisions? First, find a similarity between you and the person you disagree with. For example, if I'm having a discussion on gun control, I would say, we both feel that we have the right to be safe. Anything to communicate that you're part of the same community. This prevents their brain from seeing you as a personal threat and your brain from seeing yourself as an isolated opinion. Next, evaluate whether to engage based on long-term goals. You don't want to risk your security and safety for something that's not going to pay off in the long run. And finally, truly consider the possibility that you may be in the wrong. What? Maybe the facts aren't on your side. Admitting your faults models to the other person that it's okay to be wrong. According to Dr. Kay Kaplan, a licensed psychologist, when we exist in a state of pride and avoiding vulnerability, we can manifest negative emotions mentally and physically. And that's a battle we never win. One of the most life-changing things to happen to my relationship with my dad was an app. Sea Battle. Through this app, I could play Battleship with my dad even when we weren't together. It's helped us to stay close, and I plan on continuing to play with him even when I go off to college. But it's another attribute of this app that's most important. Once you pick a spot, you can't pick it again. You just have to move on. And that's an important lesson. So today, we talked about how we pick battles that we should just ignore. Second, how when we do pick battles, we never go about it in a productive way. Then, look at some implications before finally re-evaluating the lens through which we examine these exchanges. So I guess the most important lesson in Battleship isn't knowing how to win. It's knowing when to play. And that will never be a miss.